Mrs. Ratcliffe here, and I'm talking to you today about area. It's pretty straightforward. Area is just the amount of space that is enclosed by a two-dimensional object. Okay, it's different from perimeter. Perimeter is the length around the two-dimensional object. Area is the space enclosed inside it. Okay, so there's one way to find area, and that's particularly handy if you've got an irregularly shaped object, and I will show you that in just a minute. That is, if you have a measurement like some grid paper or something you can use, you can actually whack the grid paper on top of the two-dimensional shape and kind of count up the squares and use that to make a pretty good estimate of the area of the irregular object. Usually, particularly when we're talking about rectangles, we use a formula. The formula to find an area of a rectangle or a square is length times width. Width equals area. Okay, so area equals length times width. Sometimes it's written as A equals L times W or A equals LW. Okay, something really important, a couple important things to remember. When you're using that formula, you need to make sure that all of the measurements are in the same unit before you start multiplying. And you need to remember that when you're looking at area, it should be in a square unit. So if we're talking about a rectangle, we're talking about it in square centimeters or square meters or square kilometers. We're not talking about it in terms of length. Okay, so a different kind of unit of measurement. Okay, so this is just an example of how you can use some sort of grid to measure an irregular object. This is pretty simplistic, but basically, let's say that the grid that I have there is in meters squared or in scale to meters squared. What we really can just do, it's as simple as counting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and saying that's 5 meters squared. Okay, so if you are able to get a scale drawing and put a grid on top of an irregular object, it's a pretty good way to measure it. And if, for example, my object was wavier or wigglier, less regular than that even, you can still use it as a good tool for estimate, and we'll be looking at that in class. Okay, so let's just look quickly at some areas of some rectangles. We have here a little rectangle. This one is 10 centimeters by 7 centimeters. So it's 10 centimeters high and 7 centimeters wide, or 10 by 7. So we're going to use our formula, which is the area equals the length times the width. So that's going to be, our area is going to equal 10 times 7 centimeters. So we know our area is going to be 70 centimeters squared. Okay, 70 centimeters squared for that one. Sorry that you couldn't see that. Area equals length times width. Pretty straightforward. Now with this one, I've tried to be a little tiny bit tricky. We've got 2 meters wide and 50 centimeters long. So we have to get the same unit of measurement first. Okay, so we can either change that to 200 centimeters or we can change that to 0.5 meters. I'm going to do our area equals 2 meters times 0.5 meters. So our area is actually going to be 1 meter squared for this scenario. So see how I changed all the units till they were the same, and then I could calculate the area. Area is pretty straightforward, pretty easy, and that's the nice thing about some of these measurements. It's really just about knowing the formula and then being able to put it in practice. I hope that you feel confident that you can practice some of these area measurements on your own, and good luck.